gets this. And to those of you who are finally with us on YouTube and Facebook, I'm so sorry I did not go live, but we did actually have word of prayer. And yeah, you jumped right in. I sort of kind of feel bad, so I'm gonna take this 45-second break, and we're gonna do you better with a better introduction than that we thought we were doing. We had everything done perfectly, but we're starting in hot with you guys. So we're just going to jump for 45 seconds and let you guys embrace what is today. And that will be this introduction to your night's Bible study. All right.
If you need truth, this is the place for you. Don't need to complicate it. It's best to keep it basic. Open the book, the word is self-approved. He's Alpha and Omega, the answer since the early ages. What you should do is learn about the greatest. Just so you know, our door is always open. Let's study together instead of debating. Share our differences, let love heal all that's broken.
All right, there you go. We're back now. Good to have you with us. We're talking again about the subject matter that is extremely controversial, no matter who talks about it, what denomination of faith discusses it, what side of the fence you're on regarding it. It's always controversial. It starts major arguments, brings a great deal of division and an unnecessary separation amongst the believers in the Bible, because we don't use the Torah to believe in the Bible. We just believe in Jesus, Yeshua. And you better believe in Yeshua if you claim to be a person who believes in the Bible. But we fail to realize what Yeshua / Jesus told us to do. He basically said, I didn't come to destroy the Torah, nor the prophets that propagated the Torah. I came to show you how to live the Torah. So if he came living the Torah, which are the first 5 books of your Bibles, Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. If you don't know that, then you don't know what Yeshua did. So we're just watching Yeshua and he's telling us, go read the writ. I'm going to show you how it looks. So many of us have found ourselves divided because we don't know what the writ said, because we're very visual. And though we have a willingness to read the exciting things and miracles that Yeshua performed and did by the works of his hands, we forget to read the works of the word, which he also admonished the prophets, the Pharisees to do in his day. He said, if you don't believe me for the things you hear me say, at least believe me for the works that have been done because of the things I've said. Pretty powerful and compelling story. So today we start a major series, as we do every year this time. Every year this time we start the teachings, a comprehensive study on the tithe. Is it a con? Is it some antiquated religiosity? Is it of God? Is it to be done? Was it for the Jews? Okay, forget them. Was it for Israel? Was it just for Moshe? Was it to be done away with when Messiah hung on the cross? Was it done away with when the temple was destroyed in 72 AD? Was it something that was only for those who were the quote unquote chosen people? Is the tithing something that can be done anymore today because there are no livestock to give? There is no sheaves of wheat or ears of corn or vines of grapes to render, branches of olives to give. anise, any oils to render. So, what is the tithe? Are we to do the tithe? And why such conflict and animosity and such antagonisms, one side of the other, about the tithe? We have an entire month where I'm going to open up every passage to you about the tithe. Are you for the tithe or are you against the tithe? Is the tithe done away with? Is it obsolete? Is it present day mandate? What is the tithe? Are there different tithes? Is tithing really 23%? Is it 10%? Can I set my own level of tithe? Am I allowed to pick when I give my tithe? If I even believe it should be given. And if I believe it should be given, is it 23%? Is it 23.3% to be specific or more accurate? Is it a tenth? Can I give more than a tenth if I want to because I feel super spiritual today? And where do I give my tithe? Do I give it, if I'm a tither, to any particular place? What is the instruction about the tithe? Some really believe that it is a hoax. Some really believe that it is a mandate. I'm like you guys. I just want to know what his word says to do. So if his word will guide me, because that's where my salvation is found, that's what Yeshua came to comply with. What are we to do? Did Yeshua give the tithe? Did Paul give a tithe? We know Moshe did. So did it stop after Yeshua? What is the tithe? Well, let's begin with the New Testament, and then we'll reverse engineer into what the writ tells us in Messiah's way and in his day. We'll start with a common but not liked, basically a frowned upon passage in Luke chapter 42. Let's just, for the sake of trying to, get as modern day as we can about the tithe, and let's see if Messiah actually discusses the tithe in this process. So let's get to Luke chapter number 11. We'll begin at verse number 42. Now, please take your notes. Please call your pastor, call your favorite preacher, call your favorite evangelist, call your favorite whoever that you learn from, you like to hear from the most, and those who like to study, get your so-called Berean and all these other deep theological elements who hold some eminence in your life, and have them tune in, and let's open up the writ. We'll walk line by line, precept by precept, and according to every mitzvah that Elohim has put in the Torah, and how the livers of that Torah carry them out even till this day. So get your notepad and pencil. Go get your iPad note or your Samsung note. I prefer iPad. You stay alive longer. Just something I heard about. God made Apple. Samsung be blowing up. I'm just putting that. So grab your notes, taking apparatus, and prepare yourself for a 4-week study exclusively, exhaustively, and comprehensively on the tithe. Let's start this way. Grant me a little grace and levity. Let's go to the book of Luke, chapter number 11. We'll start at verse number 42. Next, let's go to verse number 40. How about we do that? I'll put it up on the screen for those of you that you can see it. And let's look at what he says. Let's go to actually, you know what? Let me just go a little further up today. I'm going to take you to verse number, I'm going to start. I'm going to do something, but it's going to be really weird. I'm going to start at verse number 38. I'll begin here. We're going to be focusing on verse number 42, of course, but we're going to start here for context. And when the Pharisees saw it, he marveled that he had not washed first before dinner. And Messiah said unto him, now, do you Pharisees make clean the outside of the cup and the platter, but your inward part is full of ravening and wickedness? Verse 40, you fools, did not he that made that which is without make that which is within also? But rather give alms of such things as you have. And behold, all things are clean unto you. Pay attention. But woe unto you Pharisees, for you tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs, and yet you pass over judgment and the love of Elohim. These ought you have to done, and not leave the other undone. Let me repeat verse 42. Woe unto you Pharisees, you tithe the mint and the rue. You bring your tithe, I see what you do. All manner of herbs, and yet you pass over judgment, righteous judgment. You pass over the love of Elohim to all. These, of course, your tithing of mint and rue, you should have done them. But you also should not have left the other, passing over righteous judgment and love of all, and left that undone. So he goes on in verse 43 for context. He says, woe unto you Pharisees, for you love the uppermost seats in the synagogues and the greetings in the markets. Woe unto you scribes and Pharisees, pure hypocrites, for you are as the grass which appears not, and men that walk over them are not aware of them. Then answered one of the lawyers and said unto him, Master, thus saying, thou reproachest us also. Now, I want to bring you to the point of 43, where he does make it very clear in 42 rather, that he says, you Pharisees, you do tithe. So it is clear that in the New Testament, there is a concept of tithing that is known and is done by the Pharisees in this place. This is Messiah speaking. So I want to start with who you trust the most. Most of you trust Yeshua. So let's talk about what he said, since this is our faith, and he's the not only ambassador, but the savior. Matter of fact, he's our king of this faith in Elohim. So now look closely as we take this opportunity to dig here. Now, remember, if you got questions, when you have questions, you have the right to ask them. Please make sure that you do. We will get around to you each particular service. There'll be a Q&A. You can ask your questions, and we'll take you to the writ to give you the answers for those questions. Prayerfully, they'll be acceptable to all who engage. Now, back to the point of what we talk about here. Messiah is letting them know that you Pharisees, you do the tithing for the mint and the rue, the herbs, but you neglect other parts of the mitzvah. It was better for you. It's good for you that you do the minting and the tithing rather, but not to neglect the other parts of the mitzvah. Now, Luke chapter 18 also brings us into some space that we should really consider. In chapter 18, Luke 18, verses 9 through 14, we're talking about Yeshua. He is starting this off, and listen, do not jump into anger over I don't care what side you're on this. I don't care if you believe, and I don't care if you don't believe in tithing. I don't really want any argument there. I want us to have enough energy behind trying to know the truth that we work together so we're all on the same page. That's unity. Okay. So whether you are against it or you're for it, this is a non-biased place for that, because we're looking for the truth of what tithing and all of its scope is. Where do we go with it? What do we do with it? Do we do it? Do we not do it? Whatever that looks like. What does the writ say? Messiah starts talking about this, and people say, well, Messiah doesn't talk much about tithing because he's in the earth. He doesn't have to, for reasons as you'll see here. So Luke chapter number 18, let's go quickly, verses 9 through 11. And I want to read him so we can start digging into the stuff that's going to be for research. Again, this is going to be a slow cook. We're going to be here for 4 weeks and twice a week. Did y'all hear me? This tithing conversation is 4 weeks, twice a week. Look at this. Verse 1, Luke chapter 18. Pull your Bibles out, get your notes out, do what you got to do. Look at what it says here. In Luke chapter 18, verse 9 is where we want to go, but we're going to start at verse 1 so we can have this in context, okay? It's very, very important to pay attention to this. Verse number 1, and he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought always pray and not faint. Verse 2, saying, there is a city, there is a judge, which feared not Elohim, neither did he regard man. Verse 3, there was a widow in that city, and she came unto him, saying, avenge me, mine adversary. And he would not for a while. But afterwards he said within himself, though I fear not this Elohim, nor do I regard man, yet this woman, this little widow, she just troubles me. I think I'm going to go ahead and avenge her, lest by her continual coming she wearies me. Verse number 6, Luke 18:6. And Adonai said, or Messiah said, hear what the unjust judge said. And shall not Elohim avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, though he bear long with them? I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, shall he find faith in the earth? Shall he find instructions followed in the earth? Shall he find faith in the earth? Now, watch this. Verse 9, just so you can get this in context. He says, and then he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous, and they despised others. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee, the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself. He said, Elohim, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even this publican. Yahweh, I fast twice a week. Yahweh, I give tithes of all that I possess. And the publican, standing far off, he wouldn't even lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but he smote himself on his breast, saying, God, be merciful unto me. I am a sinner. Messiah said, I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalts himself shall be abased, and he that humbles himself shall be exalted. Now, the story stops there, and you can see verse 15 says, and they brought unto him also infants. So in context, this ends here. Now, the point for me raising that to you all is so that you can see that tithing is something that the Pharisees and the Sadducees and everyone in Messiah's day thoroughly and truly did. They didn't have to talk about it because they bragged about doing it. So today in modern Christendom, why did I raise this point? Well, I've been having this study for at least 20 years, every year at this time. And I've had this in school where there was a debate between denominations that we had some fun with making debates when I thought debating the Bible was cool. And it is not. It is a waste of time. I wish I could get those years back. But it was a good, fun time. It was like a television, game, a TV game, like a TV host game, like Jeopardy or something. And you had a team and you competed against the other team to see who can get questions right. But we did this about proving a point about tithing. One system didn't believe in it. One system did believe in it. I won't tell you which side I was upon, but I'll tell you what happened in the end. I'll tell you by the time this is over where I stand with it. But I'm very much capable of doing this without bias to my side because the facts lay themselves out. Now, you might think that that is an improbability, but I promise you it is not. So when Messiah mentions tithing twice, he mentions it to the Pharisees. The reason I'm talking from here first is that the average seminary and the average Bible college graduate, master's in divinity or doctorate in theology, individual and seminary, deals with is we think that Messiah never addressed tithing. And these two instances prove why he did not have to address tithing. And it was clear they bragged about it. I'm asking a question because I want to make sure y'all follow me. And I know I just shocked some of y'all right there. Do you see how the first set of Pharisees, he addressed it? They bragged about it. He told them about themselves. Like, okay, it's good that you did the anise and the rue. It's good that you did the mint. But it was also necessary for you to keep the other mitzvahs. Then this second set of Pharisees, he tells you that one goes in to pray, and then in their prayer, which got nothing to do with this man, you drag him into your braggadociousness to Elohim about how you self-righteously believe that you are one who is an elite member of his kingdom, and you are not like this poor man because you give your tithe. So the point here is that in modern day Christendom, where these arguments relatively start, and I'm telling you what I know, not what I heard, it will always be about the fact, it will always come back. I promise you, I don't care what debate it is, it will always come back to the fact that Yeshua never taught on the tithe. The point I want to make to you is that he didn't have to, but he does mention it as a normal functionality of that modern day culture and time. So much so, pardon me, so much so that we had one other incident in Messiah's day that we overlook when it comes to the tithe. And it was when the Pharisees and Sadducees, this time together with some scribes, saw a massive gathering around Yeshua and infiltrated that gathering and antagonized the teachings. Thank you. And so what happened was they said, all right, if you're really who you say you are, tell us then, what should we do? How should we feel about being taxed by Rome? What should we feel about being taxed by Rome? Messiah looked at them and said with very clear intentions, what's your problem? What's that got to do with what I'm teaching? Well, we all have a feeling about this taxation by Rome. Mind you, a publican is one who collects taxes. Let's just walk past that slightly, real slow. So when they ask him in front of these people, like they're going to trap him, because if he says the wrong thing and he's for taxes or he's against taxes, he expects the people to be divided. The Pharisees expect, the Sadducees expect the people to be divided, and then they have some way in to prove that he is not who he proclaims to be, and they should stop listening to him. And that's all they need, is that little riff to get started. So they ask him, well, what do you think about taxation? Is it fair for Rome to tax us? Now, if you know the history, there is a story that tells you about the kings of Israel, starting with the first king, Samuel, Samuel was the prophet, and Saul, too many S's. Saul was the first king. Samuel was the last judge of Israel. And so in that day, Yahweh was telling Samuel, who had been approached by Israel, that when Samuel, we now know you're about to die. We want you to know face to face before you die, you've put your sons, who are just ratchet, in positions of authority. Now, while you alive, we know we can come to you to check them. But after you die, they're going to have rule that we can't check them any longer. And we don't like the way that they're just unrighteous, whether you know it or not, Samuel, your boys be tripping. So we love you enough because you've been a straight upstanding man all your life. We know you, but your boys, bruh, they ain't got your gene. But if you die and you keep them in place, we promise you, they're going to end up probably dead. I want you to know it before you die. Y'all don't like when we talk like this in Christian. And why is he? So we're talking about tithing. Listen. So Israel let Samuel know, as the last judge, we've decided, Samuel, since you're in your twilight, your boys are going to be coming up. We don't want to be under them. So you going to have to go to Elohim and give us a God. Pardon me, go before our God and give us a king like all other nations. We don't want this judge over Israel anymore. We want a king like other nations. Go produce that for us. We're still talking about tithe. Stay close and pay attention. So Samuel, and his feelings about the fact that his boys, his guys, he rolled up with, all of his elders are telling him, look, when you die, we're probably going to kill your sons if you leave them in charge. So we're asking you to get your affairs in order. If you want your sons to live, get them out of office before you die. That's really what that conversation is about from a human interest side. Now, Samuel in his feelings runs to Elohim and starts crying. They said they're going to kill my boys, Yahweh. Why are they going to do that to me? I know Jimmy ain't good. Billy, he do some stuff sometimes, but they shouldn't be telling me they're going to kill me. And Yahweh's like, at least they told you to your face. Oh, and by the way, stop crying. This ain't about you. It's about me. What are you crying for? This isn't about you. What do they want? They said we should give them a king like other nations. They don't want this judge anymore. Okay, fine. I told you this was going to happen. This is a part of the prophecy. I told you they would not want me running them. This is about no longer having a theocracy, but creating their own type of monarchy, democracy, or whatever. They want a king like other nations. So here's what you do, Samuel. I told you this time would come. If you get out your feelings, you would know that that's what this time is about. Oh, okay, God. Okay, God. Okay. You ever seen them babies cry when they get rebuked? I was one. I remember, you know how you was crying when your mom disciplined. Oh, okay, I might get my mom in trouble. Okay, so anyway, you okay, God, okay, Lord, okay, God. So, and he's like, stop crying. Tell them you'll give them what they want. Here's the catch that I'm talking about for the tithing piece. He goes on to say to them, I'm going to write inside of the job description for the king you want a clause. Your king will be able to tax you a tenth additionally of your overall GDP, your overall kingdom's income, right? And Elohim starts writing out the job description. Your king can do this, your king can do that. You want a king like other nations, here's what they do. You're asking for that. Said, now, when you take this job description to them, Samuel, which incorporates the king will be able to now make a governmental tax, which will not interfere with my tenth, which is the tithe. Now, this is just the facts of that conversation. Go back to 1 Samuel's chapter numbers. Just read from 8, 9 through 11. All right, and you'll get this whole job description for the king written by Elohim yourself. So Samuel now goes to Israel and says, okay, fellas, appreciate the heads up, appreciate the love that you trying to keep my sons alive. But here's what Yahweh said to do. We can get you a king like other nations. Here's what that king has the rights to do. And y'all sure y'all want this? Because it's pretty taxing. So he writes them off and tells them what the king can and cannot do. And then suddenly, watch this closely. Suddenly, Elohim told Samuel, tell them that this is what the king can do and see if they want that or not. It was a heavy transition. And they said after Samuel read everything, they can take our sons and daughters. They can make my sons run before the king's chariot and be a body shield for him. They can take the best of my land and make it for the government. We got to give them another tenth. We got to give Yahweh a tenth, and we got to give them a tenth for governmental expenses and costs. And then they can make, so he can hire his own governors and other people and put them in position, and minister of agriculture and all these other things. All right. Okay. Okay. All right, we'll do it. And so they agreed. So when Yeshua is posed with this question, skipping to the time of Yeshua now, when the king was permitted by the people, the clausing indicated that the tithe still belonged to Elohim, but the king would now come in and tax them of another tenth to run the government of the kingdom run by a king like other nations. Now, I have to give you this backdrop so you understand the importance of Messiah's comment to them. He says to them in Messiah's day, we're no longer in Saul's day, we're in Messiah's day. King Herod is just died. Caiaphas is the high priest. And Israel has been conquered by Roman Greco rule. This is deep. So when the Pharisees and Sadducees, knowing they got to give tithe, knowing they have to give Israel a tenth for taxation for the king, and now Rome is lording over them, requiring, let's just say, another tenth, because Rome runs this now. Well, we shouldn't have to do that, you know, and Rome wants more than we're able to give. Yeah, but you're now subservient to Rome because you did not obey Torah. That's your problem. So now Messiah, if you really the Messiah, because the real Messiah is going to conquer Rome and put Israel back on the map. You see, y'all didn't know this mental game was being played in this conversation, did y'all? So the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes, they begin to ask him this question in public, and he says, all right, so you want me to tell you how I feel, me, as you hearing people calling me Messiah. You want to know how I feel about the taxation of a Roman Greco rule that is imposed on us because y'all didn't obey the instructions I came to show y'all to live. That's what you're asking me. I just want to be clear. So here's what you do. Bring me a coin. I think I don't even carry change. I hate carrying change, but I think I have some change in my pocket. You know what? I do. I really do have some change in my pocket. He said, oh, you know what? I got a dime. Guess what? A dime, a tenth. So he says, tell me the inscription of who is on the coin that you guys barter with. He said, it's the emperor's coin. It's Caesar. He says, okay, well, Caesar run this place, right? Yeah, Caesar run this place. Okay, so that's Caesar's guard over there, right? Yes, it is. That's his army over there, right? Yes, it is. And they are encompassed on us, right? Yes, they are. So Caesar won his money, right? Yes, he do. So then you give Caesar what's due Caesar, because that's Caesar's money, because y'all didn't obey the Torah. So now Caesar is ruling you as prophesied in the event you didn't obey the Torah. So give Caesar what's due Caesar. Now watch this. Give Caesar what's due Caesar. Oh, and then he makes the statement emphatically. And make sure you give Elohim what belonged to him. What y'all thought? What you think Messiah meant when he said that? I just want to see if y'all will engage me in this conversation. I hope the storyteller was well enough to keep you engaged, but would you please help me out and interact with me? And what do you think he meant when he says, and give to Elohim what's due Elohim? Nobody? Okay. I guess I put y'all to sleep with the story because it wasn't about tithes. But what he meant was, give Elohim his tithe. Don't you dare pull back anything from that Torah that Elohim has ever asked for. Listen, Rome is taking a tenth because y'all let yourselves get slipped into disobedience. The kingdom of Israel is subject to give Rome that tenth. Israel gets a tenth because of the governmental functionality that Rome allows to exist. And then there's Elohim. There is now the church. Now you do not give him his Pesach, Shavuot, or Sukkah offering. You do not give him his daily offering. You do not give him his love offering. You do not give him his Sitkah offering. You do not give him his Thanksgiving offering. You do not give him his tithe, whether it is a tenth for the time of your harvest or it is a yearly or 3-year tithe for the Sitkah of the people, or a 7th year tithe, which will end up into a 50-year jubilee 7 times that. So please give Caesar what he wants, because you guys didn't obey the Torah, because Caesar now has earned that because you let yourself be pushed into disobedience. Disobedience worked death. Now you no longer want Elohim ruling over you, and this is what you ended up with. So give Caesar what's due Caesar. Prophet, Pharisee, Sadducee, scribe, and lawyer. Don't play with me. Give Caesar what's due Caesar. He deserves that. And don't forget to give Elohim what he has always commanded of you. All right, so is this making sense? So, yes, it is. Now we're still talking about the tithe. What's that got to do with the tithe? So Messiah gives that third analogy. I already gave you Luke 18. I gave you Luke 11. These are quick passages to talk about. So what happens is modern day Christendom starts to talk about this issue that Yeshua never taught about the tithe. Yet he did. If you read the Torah, you would have known each one of those instances talks directly about the tithe. Now, he didn't have to teach and tell them, y'all better give y'all tithes and y'all better give y'all offerings. Y'all better do this and y'all better do that. He didn't have to do that because they already knew the Torah. One thing they bragged about was keeping the Torah, especially now that they were under another nation, because that's the way they thought they would get themselves dug out from under that leadership. So they're bragging about it. You saw the Pharisee pray in Luke 18. You saw the Pharisees he addressed in Luke 11, bragging about their tithing. So tithing was a real thing. He didn't have to teach about it because they did it. Oh, let me give you a fourth witness. Can I give you a fourth witness about this? That he didn't have to teach about the tithe because of what he saw. Can I give you a fourth analogy that many of y'all don't pay attention to? You had to be in debates like this to understand the dynamics that I'm going to give you. But can I give you a fourth one? Two or three witnesses I've given. Can I give you a fourth one just to seal it?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So there was a time when Messiah was sitting near the tabernacle, the temple, the temple. And they were watching at the congregation of the saints, the city bring, which would also be considered their offerings. So one day he's sitting out there watching them not bring their offerings for the feast per se, but bringing offerings, because you would watch people. If you sat out by the temple, you'd see people come bringing whatever their offering, sin offering, tithe, sitka, and in many cases, you were there when everybody brought their feast offering. Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkah, whatever the day was. But Messiah, you know the story about the widow and the two mites. That's how you know the story. So let me give it to you in plain English, the BWJ translation, which is not at all deviated from the context or the content of the writ. So when Messiah is talking, he is telling his disciples to look at how these people are bringing their tithing. And he talked about how one man came with his camels and his horses, and how he blew the trumpets so that the priests could look at him when he came and dropped off in the depository his responsibilities. And he says, look at this foolishness. And then you hear the story when he says, but look at the woman. She's coming with her two mites. She's given more than all of them, right? You know that story because that's how it's been taught, right? But many of you don't know the connections between the feasts and the tithing that go along with that story because we've never read the Torah. Now you're going to start reading it, right? Good. So here's what Messiah was saying. And here's what the storyline tells us. He never had to teach tithing because he's watching them do it braggadociously, arrogantly, conceitedly. They're doing that part. They think that's what keeps them saved. So the argument that you always start off with and you always want to be able to do away with is the fact that Messiah never taught about tithing. So therefore, certain churches will tell you, well, you don't have to do this or you don't have to do that because he never taught that. Love your neighbor as you love yourself and love God with your whole heart, mind, body, and soul, and hang everything on those two commandments. Yeah, he showed you how to do it while he was watching them attempt to do it in conceit, in arrogance, and in error. So Messiah did teach without having to speak on it, though he literally spoke on it. And that was the issue of the tithing. Did that make sense, or was that conflicting for some of you? All right, so we're in Bible study. So I need y'all to know that you have the right to ask questions. Now, I've got a few minutes to get into the meat of this. So we understand this. So many people start talking from this New Testament where you and I are today, modern day Christendom, about the thing that they hate the most when they go to church. And I do. I despise this so much when people talk about Malachi chapter 3. I told you we're going to reverse engineer this, right? So when you talk about Messiah, he's telling you that it's what they do. Paul also told you what the tithing was. He reminded them. Many people get it twisted. We think Paul was telling you and me what to do. Paul was talking to the heathens, which would incorporate you and me. But in most cases, when he talked about these things of significance, he was dealing with Israel, who was doing it lackadaisically, inaccurately, slothfully. He was always reproving, some cases rebuking, but he was giving the Torah as the foundation and the authority. Now, there's a guy named Malachi, great prophet. And Malachi begins to give what you have every Sunday told to you guys, or Wednesdays, or whenever, about this issue of tithing. So we're going to go over here to Malachi chapter number 3 so we can break this down a little bit clearer for you guys. I want you to see the writ for yourselves. I'm going to read it from the King James Version, if that's okay with you all. And so Malachi chapter number 3, I'm going to, we know Malachi 3 and 9, 3 and 8, right? Will a man rob God? Right. Well, let's put this in context to what it's supposed to say, what it's supposed to look like, and what it's supposed to be. We're talking comprehensively. This is not a 15-minute sermon that's going to tell you what to do with tithing, what it is or what it is not. This is going to be a long cook because it's a lot of information for you to get it again context. Malachi 3, behold, I will send messenger. He shall prepare the way before me. And Adonai, whom you seek, shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant, whom you delight in. Behold, he shall come, says Yahweh Tsabaoth. Verse 2, but who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appears? For he is like a refiner's fire and like fuller's soap. Those are two separate things. Verse 3, he shall sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi. Ooh, why the sons of Levi? And purge them as you purge gold and silver, that they may offer unto Yahweh our Elohim an offering according to righteousness. Verse 4, then shall the offering of Uda and Jerusalem be pleasant unto Yahweh, as it was in the days of old and as it was in the former years. Verse 5, listen closely because you've never read this way. And I will come near to you to judge you, and I will be a swift witness against every sorcerer in your camp, against the adulterers, against the false swearers, and against those that oppress the hirelings in their wages, the widows, the fatherless, that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear me not. Thus says Yahweh Tsabaoth. Verse 6, keep reading, keep listening. For I am Yahweh, I change not. Therefore, you sons of Jacob, that's why you are not consumed. Now, whenever Yahweh calls, let me give you this piece of information tidbit because this is going to be a slow cook. Can y'all type that in for me today? Just say a slow cook. Can you do it? I promise you, you'll be beneficial. And I'm purposefully not going to rush you through it because you need to see the whole scope of what tithing is about, where it came from, and why Yahweh sees it the way he sees it. All right. If you can just type in slow cook for me, or I can do it myself, actually, because I want to make sure the world knows that this is a slow cook. If you came here just looky-looing, you won't be able to. You'll get impatient. You'll be bored. You'll think I'm being obnoxious and just dragging on, because I hate going to YouTube pages and the way we do ministry today and person pontificating about who they are and they just drag it on like I'm doing right now. It's irritating, ain't it? Well, this is intentionally a slow cook, not with that provocative irritant like that, but with pertinent information that you got to look at slow. Watch. Now, Malachi chapter 3, verse 6. I am Yahweh, I change not. Therefore, you sons of Jacob, you're not consumed. What does that mean? Whenever you hear Yahweh call the chosen people, right? Y'all call them Israel. The chosen people are not technically the Jews. We love the Jews. This is nothing anti-Semitic. This is nothing anti-anything other than anti-unrighteousness. So we need to know when Yahweh, your Elohim, through the prophets, mentions Jacob versus mentioning Israel. So when a message is given to a prophet, the prophet says, "Oh, Jacob, yada, yada, yada," or "Oh, Israel, yada, yada, yada." When he mentions Jacob, that means that the chosen people have been a disobedient and a gainsaying people, and he's upset with them. When he mentions Israel, he sees them as his children who may have erred, but you did it because you're just children. You're learning, maturing, you'll get it. Some of y'all never knew that. You just learned something very important today. So when you're reading the Bible, particularly in any of the prophets, the pre-exilic, the exilic, or the post-exilic prophets, the major, the minors, prophets, and you see Jacob come out of their mouth, or you see Israel come out of their mouth, now you know the tensing, and now you know the intention, because Jacob doesn't get the blessing. When he calls him Israel, he's directing them into blessing. When he calls him Jacob, he's directing them out of unrighteousness, which will eventually get them to the status of Israel again, which will eventually get them to the status of the blessings. You need to know the value of that statement, because if you read the writ, you will now understand even how Messiah deals with the Pharisees, Sadducees, scribes, and lawyers. Did y'all not think that that is a lot of people in the Sanhedrin? When did we get all those people? Only after they began to disobey Elohim. Scribes came to write what the actual fathers and the forefathers would say. They want to change this too. This is how you end up with the Halakha, the Mishnah, the Talmud. These are the writings that Judaism utilizes as a very beautiful historical, but then they make it their they make it their governmental go-to, though it's supposed to be holding up the Torah. It's supposed to be a representative of the Torah. It's their go-to at first because it sort of kind of meets the physical, natural need first, and it rationalizes things. Where the Torah is real guillotine-ish, real hard. It's like, nah, you got to do this. This is what the Torah says. But can't we do this? What if we worked it this way? Would that be sufficient? That is what we call augmentation of the Torah, which gave you the halakha. Which many of you don't know that in the New Testament, that's what Paul was referencing when he said the law, the letter of that law kills. But of course you think you knew because you never read the Torah, and you never knew Paul was only referencing Torah and how he had messed up with the Torah. And now he's come to the point of saying, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies I have received of Elohim, that we start presenting our bodies according to Torah, living sacrifices, holy and acceptable unto Elohim, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That means take the Torah, refresh that stuff through your mind, because the temple worship with the Talmud, the Mishnah, and the Halakha, and other sages that we just happen to love as our orators and commentators, we sort of kind of went astray. Get back to Torah. I could stop right there because that was deep. You might want to go back and just take a look at that. I don't know what timeline I'm on right now, but you might want to look at that little phrase we just had for that little 3 minutes and rewind that in your head and let it make sense. Now watch this next part. So Malachi is telling them, whenever you see the prophets mention Jacob or Israel, that's the point you should know. Let's go back to Malachi chapter 6. He's telling them something significant here, and it has to do with tithing, but we've messed it up. We've messed up the tithe message. We've messed up whether you do it or you don't do it. We messed up because we don't even know what to do with it. Watch this. Verse 6. I am Yahweh, I change not. Verse 6. Therefore, you sons of Jacob. So somebody tell me, is he happy with the chosen people right now when he calls them Jacob?
No, he isn't. No, he's not.
And if you notice his statement, he says, look, I change not. I'm faithful to my word. That's the only reason you disobedient people have not been consumed. Can anybody say that reads different? Verse 7 says, even from the days of your fathers, you have gone away from my ordinances. Slow down. Don't read this fast. And you have not kept them. Does that go in alignment with Jacob?
It does. Yes.
He then says, return unto me. So that means Jacob Jacob ain't with him, right?
Right.
He said, if you return to me, I'll return to you, says Yahweh Tsabaoth. But you said, where are we going to return to? You said, will a man rob God? I mean, you are God. Look at Jacob's arrogance. Y'all notice the chosen people, right?
Yes, sir.
Man, if this stuff is reading different for y'all at any point, you can say, man, that read different. That hit different. I don't care how you put it, but when we read this, I want you to let me know when it read different to you. Back to verse 6, because this is going to take a minute. For I am Yahweh, I change not. Therefore, you sons of Jacob, that's the reason I didn't consume you. From the days of your fathers, you have gone away from my ordinances, and you have not kept them, Jacob. So I'm asking you, return to me. I promise I'll return to you, says Yahweh Tsabaoth. But these jokers actually said, wherein shall we return? You act like we doing something to you. Can a man rob you, God? Huh? Oh, y'all don't like the VWJ translation? Yeah, it read different. Listen.
It read very different.
Listen. Do y'all realize that that's how they was talking? Y'all gonna look me in my eyes and tell me this day right here, this is a slow cook. Y'all ain't never read that way. And you ain't had a preacher tell you that either. You never had that told you that way.
Not at all. No, never.
But it makes sense though, don't it? That is the most disrespect. That's like a child talking back to its parent. And Yahweh is telling you, this is how y'all talk to me, with your little nasty, arrogant behinds. Listen to what he says in verse number 7. Just watch it. Let's keep going. I want you to read it one more time for clarity's sake, so we know why we're here. Verse number 7 says, for even after the days of your fathers, you've gone away from my ordinances and you've not kept them. I'm asking you, Jacob, chosen people, return to me. I'll return to you. But you arrogant, entitled misfits, you said, wherein shall we return? Where are we going to return to? Will a man rob you? Act like we did something big to you. Can you act like we robbed you? Can a man rob you, God? And then Yahweh says, yet you have robbed me. But then you say, really? Wherein have we robbed you, God? And Yahweh responds, you've robbed me in tithes and offerings. And because of this, if you would have been obedient to that which could have kept you from trouble, inside of those instructions I gave you was a curse that's associated and you're living through to disobeying me. Verse 9, you are cursed with a curse. Why? Because you've robbed me. Even this whole nation, Jacob, because you have kept yourself from obeying the instructions of the Torah. There's a curse in there that's directly associated with disobeying the Torah. That's why you're cursed with the cursing you're experiencing. Because you've robbed me. Verse 9. Even this whole nation, now in returning unto me, bring ye all the tithe now back into the storehouse. that there may be meat in mine house, and then prove me. You don't believe me? Prove me. Prove me right now with what I've asked you. Return to me. See if I won't return to you. Return to me. See if I won't bring you out of the oppression of the people that are right now making you subservient to them. Prove me now here with what I'm asking you for, says Yahweh Sabaoth, and see, verse 10. Y'all, I hope y'all getting this. Verse 10. And see if I will not open the windows of heaven. Come back to the Sabbaths. Come back to honoring me in the Sabbath. See if I won't give you an open heaven. See if I won't open the windows of heaven and pour out on you a blessing you won't even have room to receive. Oh, and if you do that, I will rebuke the devourer for your sake, but you got to prove me. You got to return to me. You got to stop robbing me. I'll rebuke the devourer for your sakes. And he shall not destroy the fruit of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field. Thus saith Yahweh Sabaoth. Oh, and by the way, when you do this, just come back to me. All the other nations that now rule over you are going to call you blessed, for you're going to become a delightsome land, says Yahweh Sabaoth. However, y'all with these little nasty words y'all keep using, y'all been pretty stout against me, says Yahweh. Yet have we spoken? How have we spoken so much against you, Yahweh? And Yahweh said in verse 14, you have said, I've heard you say, it's vain to serve Elohim. And what profit is it that we have kept his ordinances? And what profit was it that we had walked in his ways mournfully before the Lord of hosts, Yahweh Sabaoth? And now we call proudness happiness. Yeah. They that work wickedness, man, set them jokers up. They got the hook up. Yeah. They that tempt God are even delivered. We back them, get them out of their trouble. So y'all get how this conversation is going? I'm not going to read that because that's not what we're here to talk about. Does this read different?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
It don't read like you curse with a curse. It don't read that, do it? I'm telling you right now, you don't give your tithe, you curse by God. Christian, Jesus laid on the cross. If you don't give your tithe, you curse by God. No, you keep lying, you're going to be cursed with the curse that Elohim put in that particular subsection. The same one you keep singing about. Blessed in the city, blessed in the field, blessed when they come and when they go. You. No. Deuteronomy 28. There is a curse associated with not diligently hearkening unto his words. Inside of all this covenant Elohim has given, inside of all this Torah is a component called tithing. But Israel, Jacob here, has been disobeying so much in their arrogance in responding to Elohim when he comes and says, hey, Adam, hey, Jacob, where are you? Yeah, well, we ate the fruit of the tree of the not as good and evil. Two different stories, don't get them twisted. Jacob acts just like Adam. Can a man rob you? You act like we took something from you. I need about 10 people just to say it reads different.
It reads different.
So the tithing wasn't about cursing you. The tithing was a part of the covenant that encompassed how to bless you and me when we honor what his instructions say. So let me move quickly before we can get further lost in this, because when I come back on Sunday, I'm going to be I'll be in the studio with the board, and I'll be breaking some things down on the board for you all to view. But I wanted to get you at least intrigued, because now you're realizing that tithing has more tentacles than you thought. And how you tithe, if you tithe, should you tithe, has an actual foundation that you need to research. And it was not based on somebody telling you, you don't tithe, you cursed with by curse of God. And Jesus ain't preach about the tithe, so we don't be doing it. And then the temple burned down in 70 AD. And this is all of that. No, it don't read the way it's been read to us. So we're going to start this up on Sunday. I want you to come on back. I want you to prepare your hearts. I want you to get into these actual chapters. Okay. I want you guys in this study. Will y'all work with me? Can we study together? Because this is what this is. This is what this is. It's a Bible study. All right. So I want you to write these down. Someone put them in the queue. I want someone who can type for me, and YouTube and Facebook and on Clubhouse. I want y'all to type these passages in. I want you to prepare, keep them in your head. I want you to start looking them up before you come back to these studies with us, because some of you have time, some of you don't, but at least you'll have these passages in the event that, let's just say, you never talk to me again. You'll at least be able to look this up on your own. I want you to have it whether I'm with you or not. Okay. So Genesis chapter, let's go to Genesis chapter 14. Don't go there, but write that down. Genesis chapter number 14. I want you to get it. It's important to you. Then I want you to also start reading Genesis chapter 28. And then I want you to read, y'all need more time, Genesis 28, Bereshit 28. Then I want you to understand Devarim 12, Devarim 14, Devarim 26. Okay. And that's what we'll be dealing with on Sunday. I'm going to unpack all of that for you. And yes, we're going to do a lot of the VWJ translation, but you're going to be reading it yourself with the necessary emphasis and all of the types of referencing that the culture requires to understand the instructions scribed out. All right. So did y'all type them in? Did I get somebody to do that? Genesis, Bereshit chapters 14, Bereshit chapters 28, Bereshit or Devarim chapter 12, Devarim 14, Devarim 26. We'll start there. And then I'll take you into Romans 7, Ephesians 2, Colossians 2, 1 Corinthians 9, Galatians 5, Matthew 22, Galatians 5 again. And all of these, Hebrews chapter 7, very important stuff. So you can understand what Paul said and why he said it. Can y'all recite this with me? And then I'm going to ask you for questions. If you got questions, you can ask me now. Just make this statement with me. Use Torah as lenses for the Bible. So use the Torah as your spectacles, your glasses to read your Bible. Sounds sort of kind of oxymoronic, right? But it's not. Use the Torah as the spectacles to help you focus on the Bible. Okay? All right. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? I'm going to shut down here because if I start this next passage, we'll be here a while. And I think it's best for me to put this all unpacked on Sunday for you in this passage. And if you want, this is going to be a month-long process, so you can even bring this into Sabbath studies for those of you who are with us in DKM Ministries, and we can go from there. So I'm going to take a few moments to ask you guys, does anybody have questions that you'd like to ask? Quickly, if it's going to be too long, I'll let you know. If it's going to be, I'll give you what you need to know to get where you got to go at. But does anybody have any questions, or maybe even remark that, hey, I never, that's the first time I literally heard that spoken that way, and it gives me pause now. Or I got a question, whatever it is. This is what we do in our Bible study. So we got 15 minutes. So if you got a question or thought, what I'll do is I'll flip to an announcement, and then we'll come back and give you time to gather your thoughts or your questions. So while I go through our announcement spiel, if you got questions, your Q&A will be coming up right after this series of announcements. Well, again, we're welcoming you here, and we're thanking God for having you here with us on our Wednesday night Bible studies. Very important times and passages that we go over what Yahweh is doing. This is, in fact, our Wednesday night Bible study that you're presently a part of. We also have what is known as our Thursday night Bible book club, which will be tomorrow. And that will be where we're taking the book of Genesis and we're reading all the way through to Revelations. But we're doing that also in a way of study, line per line, precept upon precept. So you have a deeper depth and a truer understanding of what the writ was saying. Join us at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for that. As well, after Thursday, we come into our Sabbath every Friday at sundown till every Sunday at sundown, every Saturday at sundown. Let me say that again. Friday at sundown until Saturday at sundown is the seventh-day Sabbath of the Torah calendar, which has had, unfortunately, the superimposing of the Gregorian calendar to give you days like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. But Yahweh gave us the days in numbers. So the day number 7 is Friday at sundown until Saturday at sundown, and that's the Torah calendar. And in that, we'll be doing Sabbath studies, both usually 11 p.m. ish on Friday night and 11 a.m. ish Saturday morning. Whenever Yahweh releases us from prayer or personal studies, we'll come on and share with you what we have. And then, of course, every Sunday at 10:15 a.m., we have the Morrow After Sabbath service. You can join us there for what we do in DKM Ministries. And learn more about what happens. And of course, we keep that Torah always loading in our studies. And then, of course, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on our preceding word broadcast for VWJ Ministries, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahweh, who is our Elohim. We'll be here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, just as we were today on Wednesday. And we were talking, I think we talked today about, what did we talk about today? We talked about not cheating. Don't cheat the technique. Don't cheat the technique. So you can tune in on any of those broadcast days and times. There's no charge. We don't do all that. You won't have to register for nothing. Just show up. But we do have another announcement to give you before we start taking your cues, your questions, is that on the next Tuesday, for those of you who have been interested on how to keep, as it were, your Sabbath and your Moedims rightly, will be teaching on how to properly prepare for that on next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll have to register with us, contact our webpage, put your name down. I'm going to probably have you communicate with myself directly on this one, and you'll have to email us at the KYC email address, staff.kyc@gmail.com. So email us there. Let us know that you'd like to participate in the Tuesdays at 7 p.m. It'll be for 3 weeks. Tuesday at 7 p.m. It'll be teaching you how to prepare for the Moedim so that you are not insufficient or lacking in any of the requirements and compliances for the Moedim. So if you want to be a part of that class, it will be on that Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we also want you to be aware, for those of you who've heard about KYC and been asking about KYC, know your calling. KYC, know your calling. That class will begin January, first week of January. And that will be the class to help you to know your calling. Who are you? Why were you created? What is your gift in the earth? Are you what the pastor said or the bishop said? Are you this, that, or the other? Are you this prophet? Are you a pastor, an evangelist, or prophet, evangelist, teacher. What are you? What is your calling? Why did Yahweh bring you into the earth? There's a way to find that out. KYC has done a wonderful job of helping you to extrapolate that from the mess and the muck and the mire of your life so that you can live at a higher plateau in a higher plane, knowing his purpose and being content with some great deal of tranquility over where you've been in comparison, and can give you a sense of purpose and fulfillment, knowing who you are. KYC begins. There is a monetary fee for that due to the fact that we have to incorporate professors and adjunct professors to bring that into fulfillment. And we hope that you would look at considering being a part of that class. Well, those are the announcements we have right here for you guys from this particular programming called the Bible Studies here on Darash Kingdom Ministries under VWJ Ministries. And we hope that you have some knowledge as to what you can do, how you can communicate with this ministry, how you can learn and glean from this ministry. And again, it's about you having a relationship, not about you making this ministry big. We need you to be big. We need you to be in his presence. I need to be there too. I hope to lead in that direction as we all travel together for that purpose. All right. Well, outside of that, we're going to get back to our questions and answers. So we've given you a little bit of time. I tried to stall for you as best I could. So does anyone have question or thought before we go ahead and dismiss this course? We have literally 12 minutes. Anyone? Okay, awesome. Great. Glad that everybody's knowledge is where it needs to be and you all have no questions about what we're talking about, and or you may not just have had the time to get them secured. But what we will make sure that you do is if you got any questions, you can hit us up, inbox us at VWJ Ministries on Facebook or YouTube, and we will make sure that staff gets around to asking your questions. If you're on Clubhouse, just inbox us in the Clubhouse. Well, I guess you can't do that anymore either, can you? But you can ask me questions however you can get to us. Go to the webpage, vwjministries.com, and you'll find just how you can communicate with us very easily. I ain't hard to find, all right? And we look forward to studying with you all. So let me just double check. Okay. I do have a question. Sister Herring, Sister C. Herring from God, Sister C. Hearing from God. Should we tithe only monetary? Tithing is about monetary. It's about you in increase. It takes different forms. My time is technically as valuable, more important and more valuable than any type of resource I could have in my hands to barter with. So you do tithe from an increase. And people have the viewpoint that within Christendom, especially because of the way the Catholic construct is, in their effort to galvanize people around their effort to really put a thumb and control grip around the neck of most of its parishioners. And we in the Protestant church have carried that on and believe what the Catholic Church did was they made you believe that your giving of your time, your giving of your time is also a tithe. I'm going to tell you that is not true. Well, if you work in the tabernacle, you work in the system. I mean, you give of your time. You got to get your time in the sense that it was projected is not true that your time is a tithe. Now, your time is valuable, more valuable than money, silver, gold, anything. Your time is valuable. You can't get that back. However, to say modern day that if you came and served in the church, you're tithing, or if you are tithing, putting on the roof to the building, or tithing labor hours for the soup kitchen, or tithing labor hours that would be needed to be paid for giving out socks or coats in the winter, for whatever we do from a Catholic construct of charity inside the Christian institution. Y'all asked, so I'm gonna give it to you raw. Now, when we say, is tithing just monetary? Tithing is about your increase. Always has been, always will be. There is a sidka inside of our tithe that we'll talk about in Devarim 26 and 27. That'll be on Sunday, so be here for that. However, when people tell you that you tithe, you can tithe. What if you don't have money? What if you don't have income? Can you tithe that way? No. But you can give sitka. You can help your brother, help your neighbor with your IP, with your resource of hand. But tithing is about increase. So when people would say, "Oh, I tithe, and then I give my tithe to the AMA, American Medical Association, or I give mine to the Cancer Association, or I give mine to the Smithsonian, or I tithe to this nonprofit group or that nonprofit group," all of that stuff we're going to talk about for those who do tithing, and then we're going to talk about that for those who don't believe in tithing. What is it about? So is tithing, for the sake of this question, appearing this is a person who may believe in tithing? Tithing is not. Tithing is monetary. Tithing is about increase. There's no other foundation. When you run through the Torah, you will see that when you come into your land and you receive your harvest, you are to tithe. Your increase, you tithe. There is no tithe your time. And there was never in tithing by going to clean the toilets out at the church. There's never, ever been a tithing for those on the side of believing in tithing. There was never a tithing of going to the soup kitchen or going to the crusade and dedicating or donating time. That's not a tithe. Never has been, never will be. Because in the days that the Torah were rendered, if you believe in the tithe, then the Levites were responsible for all things tabernacle. Were they tithing? No. They were working. And as a matter of fact, in their work in the tabernacle, because they did not have fields, they did not get any property in the promised land, their responsibility was the tabernacle. When the people got increase, they would tithe. Then a tenth of the offerings would be a tithe for the priests. And then they would take their flesh hooks in that tenth and pull out what they needed, because they lived off of that. And then they tithed off of what they brought out of the tithe to make sure that everybody was compliant to the same non-prejudicial Torah. We're going to learn all of that. It's a great question. Good start. You're welcome, she says. Thank you, Sister C, hearing from God. All right, Sister C, hearing from God. You're welcome. Great question. All right, anyone else have a question? We've got 7 minutes. Simone Blessed makes a statement that says, Apostle, will Tuesday's class be recorded? No. I'm interested, but it happens during work day. We will look into that. I just realized that is a true. You know what? Yeah, I can do that. As a matter of fact, I think that I can, and we can give access to those who are properly registered and qualified to be in that class. Yes, you need to qualify to be in that class. That's why you need to inbox me, email me, because there will be a series of questions you have to answer before you are actually permitted into that class. Because there's a lot of people who don't even know what that class is about, but because it's a class and they may revere and respect the way we teach here, they think they just get anyway. You got to qualify for that class. So I will look into that. I'm glad you mentioned it. I didn't think about it, whether it can be recorded. Thank you for adding value to this subject matter. Who is that? Miss Blessed. Shalom to you. We will let you guys know about that as well. That I can pretty much guarantee you I will have that recorded. Yeah. For those who qualify and cannot attend at the hour it's functioning, because we're on 5 continents. As with everything, we got many time zones, and I wasn't thinking, but I am now. All right. Thanks for helping me to remember that. Moderators, did I hear a name?
Yes, sir. We have a question in the chat, and he's on stage. King.
Yes, thank you. Go by King, but my name is Michael.
Shalom, Michael. How are you?
I'm well. You messaged me yesterday, so I'm glad to meet you live on stage. Appreciate it. My question directly was regarding the Yaqub versus Israel. I totally understand the differentiation, but how do I interpret that when those two are mentioned in the same sentence in Scripture?
That's a great question, man. The reason I'm laughing is because when I first understood that, I remembered, oh man, was it Isaiah? I think it was Isaiah. He was a 55 or a 61, and he was like, "Awake, O Israel, and then tell Jacob her sins," right? Because Israel is always going to be associated with a people trying to be his children, and then Jacob will always be, as we stated, associated with the children disobeying the father. So, for instance, I believe it's Isaiah. We might even be able to get by if we go to Joel chapter 2, when he says, "Awake, O Israel, blow the trumpet in Zion," as it were, Israel, and then show Jacob their sins, right? It's you have to slow read. KYC, how do you read the Bible?
Slow.
Got to read it slow. And if you don't read it slow, you'll bypass it so fast. And people don't realize that Israel and Jacob are the same thing when in the mouth of the prophets, King. That's a great question. I laugh because it used to get me all the time. And then I had to realize I got to slow down. What does it mean? So when you hear Israel, you have to know that Yahweh is dealing with them as children. When you hear Jacob, he is upset with the children. And Israel and Jacob, and King, you didn't ask for this part. I'm going to add this for the benefit of a teaching moment to the masses. Most people don't know that Israel and Jacob are the same person. Yeah, I'm pausing for effect. Most people don't know that Israel and Jacob are the same person. So in the book of Bereshit, in Genesis, where in fact Jacob is running from his brother Esau, and now 20 some odd years later, Elohim has told Jacob to return home. He has this we call fight with an angel who hallows his thigh. And then he says, "What is your name?" "My name is Jacob." "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob. Your name is Israel." Right? "I'm not going to leave you till you bless me." Israel is your blessing posture, right? So Israel and Jacob are the same person. Now, when Jacob is disobedient, when Israel is being disobedient, he labels them as Jacob. When they are in their divine effort of being a child of Elohim, children of Elohim, the chosen of Elohim, he calls them Israel. It doesn't mean that they're perfect. It many instances mean that they're like a child. Any child you love, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to get their dress dirty. They're going to get their shoes scuffed up. They're going to not sit down. They're going to do something goofy. That's children. That's just parenthood. But when they're Jacob, you need to get, you need to be taken out to the shed, as they used to say back in the days. And we don't promote any kind of violence or physical harm or corporal punishment, but the Bible does declare that, you spare that rod, you spoil the child. So when he calls him Jacob, he's not trying to spare the rod. They deserve, the rod, right? So that the child can't be spoiled. King, does that make a little sense, or did I just convolute it?
No, absolutely. That clarified it. Thank you so much. I'm taking notes. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming through, man. Appreciate you. Anytime you got questions, you guys can ask them. All right, mods, we have another name with any other question. We have 1 minute.
No, sir.
Thank you all for your time and appreciate you for your attentiveness to the matter. We'll be doing this slow cook on this Sunday. You might want to be here again. I'll be demonstrating. I'll be using some artistic demonstrations. I know y'all don't like my stick men, but my stick men will be in full effect on Sunday. Get yourself ready. And the passages that I gave you guys, please read up. You ain't got to study them. I want you to read up on them. Technically, I'm asking you to plant them in your soul. I'll come along and water them on Sunday, and then we'll dung about them on next Wednesday, because they're going to be very important to understanding the foundation for the concept that has always been controversial, called the tithe. Father, I thank you for the opportunity to be an ambassador of your writ. I pray that we are able to do for you in the earth what you have always wanted done by the people you've put on the earth. I pray now that the wisdoms of you through your plan of salvation for our very lives would seep through and impact us. More importantly, empower us. We believe, Yahweh, you raised Yeshua from the dead. We believe, Yahweh, he sits in your right hand, making intercession for us. Many of us want to come out of our bondage. We want to come out of our afflictions. We want to come out of our pain. We want to come out of our negative balances, mentally, physically, financially, and spiritually. But we can only do that when we come to your arms and desire to comply with your will all the way. So today, we accept the blood of Yeshua that cleanses us from our Jacob state, from our sinful state. And we're asking you right now that you would cleanse us in that blood as we confess and repent of any and all sins that could have transgressed your will for our lives. Now, we thank you for salvation. We believe Yeshua lived, died, and rose again, and sits in your right hand making intercession for us. Thank you, Yeshua, for your finished work. Thank you, Yahweh, for giving us access to you, that we might receive grace in the time of trouble. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Now may Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May Yahweh lift his countenance upon you and grant you all 13 attributes of his shalom. This we pray in the precious and in the matchless name of Yeshua HaMashiach. We all say, Amen. Well, Zion, we're going to let you go. We got one last announcement for you. And
thank you for tuning in today. I hope that this message has been a blessing to your very life and your soul, and more importantly, your walk with the King. Well, we have come to the end. I hope that you would consider becoming either a partner with us in ministry, or if you're not already a kingdom citizen, consider becoming one. By doing that, you can sow into this ministry so that we are able to continue to teach this type of ministry at a grand scale. Join us on all of our social media platforms and visit our webpage to make your contributions sure. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Shalom Aleichem.
If you need truth, this is the place for you. Don't need to complicate it. It's best to keep it basic. Open the book, the word itself approved. He's Alpha and Omega, the answer since the early ages. What you should do is learn about the greatest. Just so you know, our door is always open. Let's study together instead of debating. Share our differences, let love heal all that's broken.